I'm not surprised Rory's old QI10 was perfect for his win at Augusta, especially when you break down the new QI35 he was fitted into just before Bay Hill and then compare it to the build that he was using all last year. Ultimately, I want to show you what really creates distance with the driver, but then also the negatives that come with that distance. Guys, how you doing? Welcome back to a brand new video. Simon here at SAS Golf Academy, and what a win for Rory over the weekend. And for me personally, one of the best Masters I've ever witnessed, alongside obviously Tiger's comeback win. However, over the course of the 4 days of watching Augusta, it was very much apparent how much longer Rory was than everyone else in the field. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of technical attributes that obviously go into that as well. But let's be honest, as fast as Rory is in terms of club head speed, there are still players that can get into the 120s quite comfortably. So why was he almost 30 yards further than everyone else? And that's where a touch of club fitting comes in, as well as just pure guts, as there's a definite disadvantage when it comes to treading that line of high launch and low spin, as I'll also explain. And throughout this video, I just want you guys to take away a few bits on how you could either get more consistency with your driver or potentially add another 10 to 15 yards, even if it isn't with the latest and greatest technology out there. This is a monster of a club. Even I can't keep this thing in the air, and that's at 123 miles an hour worth of club head speed. And to be perfectly honest, it's more of a technical issue of why that's happened and why I'd probably be better off using Rory's QI35 build than potentially the one that he put in the bag at the Masters. But let's not get it twisted, that is a technical fault at heart. And to be honest, I've had a lot of help with those technical faults thanks to the guys at Swingtweaks. Swingtweaks is an online coaching app offering PGA professional advice at affordable prices. Hence why they're such a good partner for this channel. All you have to do to get your swing tweaked is take a video down the line and also face on with a brief description of what you want to work on. So whether you're a beginner or more advanced player, when it comes to the driver, yes, equipment can make a difference, but let's be honest, technique definitely is the bigger factor. We're going to cover all the attributes of Rory's driver that helps decrease his spin loft when it comes to the dynamic loft aspect. And then I want to cover how brilliant Rory is at being as fast as he is and hitting up through the golf ball as much as he does whilst keeping it under control. Better than anyone else in the world, as there's golfers that swing as fast as him, yet if they went to hit up through the golf ball as much as he does, well, the misses outweigh any distance gain that they're potentially going to see. I mean, that third round, first 9 holes was a masterclass of hitting the ball as hard as you can and skating the line between launch and spin and ultimately maximizing spin loft better than anyone else on the planet. But why could he not do it with the QI35? And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if TaylorMade are now working on a very similar build to the old QI10, because I've tested the QI35 and I think it's great. However, let's not overlook the importance of a head, shaft, length, flex combination over something that's brand new. And I want to read you this quote off the TaylorMade website where Rory was talking about going into Bay Hill and why the QI35 was built the way it was to potentially not go as far as his old QI10. For a while I've been looking for a club that sort of carries 300 in the air. I feel like there's a lot of golf courses we go to that really pinch in at 310, 320, and in that particular situation, he's just going to have to hit 3-wood to take the danger out of play. I can't hit driver because it's too narrow, but then I would hit my 3-wood that goes 285, 290, and guys that are shorter than him are then taking driver off the same tee, so potentially out-driving him on average. And what I want to explain is this is the spec of the QI35, and it makes sense. The build was potentially there to add that spin, take some distance off, but then add forgiveness, add control. I mean, even here, the weight ports, especially for the QI35, Quite a lot of weight in the back of the head. That's going to help MOI, but not necessarily tread that fine line between low spin and high launch. Rory has a QI10 dot. The only marking on that head to tell you the difference between a dot version and a standard version is there's a tiny little dot where the loft is. To explain it simply, it's halfway between the LS head, which arguably could be too low spinning and not necessarily as forgiving, and then the quite forgiving QI10 that I have here. The bigger the head we have on any shaft, that is, forget if it's reg stiff, X stiff, the more the head wants to twist and also kick on the way down. What does this mean? If I had a small head on this shaft, it's going to launch lower and spin lower. If I have a big head on this shaft, I'm going to launch it higher and spin it more. Quite like that, which means let's cover the shaft itself. Now, he had the Ventus Black already in his QI10, and he had the Velocore version, the newest one that's come out in the QI35. But I did read somewhere the new Velocore felt like it gave more of a kick and almost described as the Velocore Light, which makes total sense because if you look at this QI35 build and take Rory's quote for Bay Hill, he doesn't want low spin, he wants more backspin. And why would you want more backspin? Well, more backspin helps offline shots. It's why you would have seen Rory at times when he was trying to hit his fairway finder, actually aim left. It's why a lot of pros hit fades nowadays because balls are so low spinning. Again, Rory's gone to the TP5, which is the more spinnier version of the TaylorMade premium model. But unlike quite a lot of pros over the weekend that just hit cut fades all day, just hit that fairway finder, especially under that immense pressure where you're hitting more down on it to try and increase that backspin so that if you don't quite get hold of all of it, it doesn't go too far offline, unlike my one just there. But this is where the angle attack portion of this video comes in. We can fit for that. We can get shafts that drop that. We can get heads that drop that. We can get shafts that help somewhat our dispersion from either out to the right here or out to the left. What we can't improve realistically, unless you really alter the length of your driver, is your angle of attack. And this swing here is for you guys that spin everything 3,500, 4,000, where you're coming across it and hitting down on the ball too much. You are personally adding too much spin loft with your angle attack and potentially flipping your club at impact. By putting a low spin head and a low spin shaft in your driver, all you're really doing is just dropping your dynamic loft, which ultimately drops your launch angle. And as you can see here with the numbers, I've got incredibly low launch and still quite a lot of backspin. And at a similar speed of 116, if we were hitting up through the ball, which helps our launch angle because we're hitting up, even lower spin loft at this particular speed, then not only are you getting higher launch, but you're also getting less spin. Another thing that he does to reduce his spin loft and obviously dynamic loft is actually have a 9 degree, but then loft it down to 8.25. Now, don't get me wrong, he could just have a standard 8 degree head, but when you're lofting something down, you actually open the face. And if you're fearful of, let's say, the left miss, then keeping that club face more open whilst de-lofting it obviously kills two birds with one stone. This brings me on to my last talking point, and it's the fact that Augusta doesn't really pinch in that much. Okay, there's some holes that are tighter than others, but it's kind of this tunnel, like going down the fairway. Very rarely did a lot of holes pinch in and bottleneck, which meant that if you're hitting it 280, 290 with a fairway wood, you've got just as much fairway at hitting it 330, 340 with a driver. Not to mention, the QI10 that he has been using is actually an inch shorter length in shaft compared to the QI35 that he had at Bay Hill, meaning that he's potentially got a bit more control over that club face and where he's going to strike it. And because he's phenomenally fast and maneuvering and working that launch and spin so well, not only was he one of the longest drivers of the ball that week, but in places, one of the most accurate. Again, thank you to the sponsor of this video, Swingtweaks, and there's a brief thought and outline that it's not really technology, but more the fitting and head and shaft combination behind them. Guys, if you've got any questions, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you guys later.